Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a books beside my bed video for you where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. This is my reading week from the 25th until the 30th of June. I read a total of 10 things during the first week of my holiday break and I am very excited about that because I'm doing nothing but read. And it is bringing me joy. The first book that I'm going to talk about is a review copy that I received from Alan and Unwin. It is a middle grade graphic novel called Ember and the Island of Lost Creatures by Jason Pamment, and this is an absolutely gorgeous little graphic novel for middle grade readers. It is about Ember, who is a tiny little human who dreams of going to school, but where they live they are surrounded by regular sized people and he finds it really hard to fit in. However, he meets Lua, who is a sea turtle, and Lua takes Ember to the Island of Lost Creatures where they meet plenty of other tiny little creatures just like them. And they go to school, they learn a lot about creatures that live on the island, and they maybe even uncover a being that may or may not be malevolent. I don't know if that's the word. Anyway, this was absolutely gorgeous and fun. It's all about friendship, making friends, being the new kid, settling into a new place, change, and also listening to others and getting to know people. Like, it was beautiful, and the illustrative style did remind me very much of Amulet. I will talk a little bit more about it over on my kids channel, but yeah, this was really fun. I'm so glad that I requested this. I also reread Magic Claims for the live show that happened just recently, so I will not talk about this here. I'll leave a link to the live show and my previous review of this book up on the screen if you want to check it out. Alright, then diving into my new reads, I read Rebel Yule by Kate Meader, which was book 5.5 I think in the Rookie Rebel series. It's a novella. It is a Christmas novella, and this is the relationship between Eric, who is the goalie on the team, and the owner's personal assistant, and her name is Cassie. Throughout the other books we have seen that Cassie has been very cold towards Eric, despite the fact that Eric is just an absolute sweetheart, and he is really attracted to her and he is trying to figure out why she doesn't like him. And as it turns out, they have met before. However, Eric has face blindness, so he doesn't recognize faces. And the first time that he met and had a one-night stand with Cassie, she had different hair, and that's usually his identifying feature. And so he doesn't recognize her. And this is their second chance. Like I said, it's a Christmas novella. They end up spending Christmas together. He is Swedish and he keeps cooking up Swedish food and Swedish feasts. And it is just very, very sweet. Then I continued the series. I read Jock Wanted, which is book 6. This one is about the new GM for the team, Fitz, and he is having some issues with one of the players who has a habit of being in the media for sleeping around. And so he and the team have decided that they're going to try and rehab this player's reputation by finding the player a fake date who cleans up his image a little bit. They end up settling on Tara, who is a wannabe wag. She's been in previous books before. She's an absolute delight of a character, and people mostly know her because she has been very open about trying to become the wife of one of the players. She is a hairstylist by trade. She is irreverent and very confident in herself, but we learn that she is the primary guardian of her older sister who has an intellectual disability, and her sister is living in a care facility that costs a lot, but it is a place where her sister is really happy, and Tara is determined to find someone who is going to be happy to help her support her sister. At first, Tara and Fitz do not get along. They butt heads. Every time Tara is talking about him, usually insulting him, he usually turns up. But as they begin to spend more time together, like it's an opposites attract sort of relationship, they begin to fall for one another. You know, for a lot of the series, we've thought Tara has been pretty mercenary, but we're finding out her backstory and exactly why, and how she came to be the primary guardian for her sister and all of that. And it was just very sweet. Fitz is also very sweet. But it was nice to finally get Tara's story because I've really liked her as a character because she has always been very honest about what she wants. And then I read book 7 is Superstar. This is Bastian's story. Bastian is Reed's younger brother. We've had Reed's book, and in Reed's book they ended up in an on-ice fight because they were playing for rival hockey teams. And so Bastian has been nursing an injured wrist back to health, and he has left his previous team and has now joined the Chicago Rebels with his brother. And in his very first game back, he ends up running into the Rebels mascot on the ice, falling and re-injuring his wrist. So he's back on the injured reserve list. He's not happy about it. The fans are not happy about it. The coaching staff are not happy about it, and they all place the blame on the mascot. The person inside the mascot happens to be Pepper, who is the coach's daughter, and she has had a string of bad luck. She has been burnt by hockey players in the past, and the media have absolutely crucified her, and now they're doing it again. And I should say, at this point, Pepper is not solely responsible for this accident. Bastian needs to take some of the blame for himself. But initially he is obviously very angry at her. However, when he sees how she is treated, he was planning on staying at his brother's sort of lakeside cabin. He ends up demanding that she drives him because he is concerned that if she stays in town, what's going to happen to her. So she is not happy with this arrangement, but she drives him up there and then they end up snowed in. And it was just really fun and enjoyable. And Bastian, who has been sort of the nice guy brother, the very carefree brother, rapidly realizes that maybe there's a whole lot of things that he hasn't dealt with, like his toxic father and his resentment towards his brother and a whole lot of things. You know, he's even dealing with the fact that he may never play hockey again and what that might look like for him. So I really liked those elements. And I appreciated that once he got to know Pepper more, he began to see past what everyone else was saying about her, because she has been through a lot. And the way that she claws herself out of notoriety via TikTok is just classic. And also I like the fact that she is a mascot, and that in this world the mascots have this group chat and they're really good friends and they support one another. Like, that just made my day. Then I read Asher by Louisa Masters. This is book 1 in the Demons-in-Law series. This is connected to the Community of Species series. It is an paranormal romance between a demon and a hellhound. And in this world, Asher is a demon who lives in a very small community in the Alps. And this community really doesn't interact with the other paranormal species. And they have decided, alongside the Community of Species government, to allow people in to teach their young children about the other communities. And Garrett is a member of that team. So he chooses a couple of teachers to go with him. It's a very small group because they're going to find it really hard to travel to and from this very remote little community up in the mountains. Before they get there, Garrett is in one of the biggest cities closer to the town. He ends up having a one-night stand with Asher. I think they exchange names, but they don't really exchange much more information about each other. We find out that Asher comes from a very prominent family in the town, and there is a lot of expectations on him to get married and to start a family. In order to get people off his back, he creates this fake boyfriend that he's been seeing, and he uses Garrett as the model because that's the last guy that he saw. And then Garrett turns up in town and everyone recognizes him for that. So the two of them end up in this fake relationship and then a marriage of convenience for the sake of Garrett's time in town and for smoothing the way for what he wants to do. He is a teacher, but he's also a social anthropologist, so he finds it really fascinating to be in a demon town where he gets to spend time actually learning about the demon community. And along the way, the two fall in love. There is no third act breakup in this. In fact, they're together and pretty solid by halfway through the book, and then there is another little mystery that happens in the second half of the book where they're expanding sort of this world and the history and the mythos of the dragons that exist in this world. So this was really fun. I also read Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsner, which was one of the book picks for the Queerlit Readathon. This is a sapphic romance between Cassie and her best friend's mother, Erin. The two meet at a bar. They have no idea who the other person is. They have this one-night stand, and then the next morning, Cassie goes to breakfast with her best friend and her mother and sees Erin, and then, you know, they figure things out pretty quickly from there. The two of them initially are determined not to be together, but end up spending time together and exploring the complexities of being in a relationship, the complexities of what it means when other people find out about this relationship given the age gap, the fact that Erin has been through a very messy divorce and is trying to rehab the relationship with her daughter. It was very interesting. The only thing I can say about this is because this was an age gap story and they were playing into the fact that people will have opinions about their relationship, because of course people do. When it's this long, I get really stressed about how it's all going to play out. I prefer them if they're a little bit shorter in this case, or if they get to the point of confronting people's expectations earlier. That is a personal quirk, is not a reflection of the book. The book was really well written. I just don't like being stressed for 300 plus pages. I also read The Husband Hoax by Saxon James. This was one of the books that I picked up at Rare, just like Asher, and this is book 1 in the Accidental Love series. It is about Christian and Emil. Emil comes from a very, very wealthy old money family, and his grandfather has just passed away, and he is seeing his family for the reading of the will. He is set to inherit quite a bit of money from his grandfather, but there is a stipulation that he needs to get married in order to access the inheritance. So yay, marriage of convenience trope. He gets fed up with his family. He ends up walking out for some air, and he stumbles across Christian, who is freaking out. Christian is in the same location for a wedding that is in another part of the venue. He has hired a guy to be his fake date / fake boyfriend for the wedding so that his family lay off him. Christian's family are not supportive of him being gay, and he is very concerned about what they are going to think. And Emil sort of talks him down out of his panic and offers to go to the wedding with him. And so they go, they end up having a one-night stand, and Christian has no idea that Emil is famous and wealthy. You know, after they've had their one-night stand, they're sort of talking, and Emil has told him about the situation he's in with his grandfather's will, and Christian says, well, I'll marry you. It can be marriage of convenience. I don't want your money. You can make me sign whatever. I'm just happy to, you know, I'm happy to help you out. And Emil offers to pay off Christian's debts and whatnot in exchange, and, you know, go from there. And then Christian finds out who Emil is, and they have to sort of deal with that. On top of that, Emil's they end up going through with the ruse, and Emil's family is not at all impressed with Christian because he is not high society enough. And it is about the two of them dealing with this and realizing that they've already fallen in love before they even realize it. And also, the other thing that I loved about this book is the group of friends that Christian has. He lives in a share house with other queer artists, and they're just friends. It's very platonic at this point in time. And they are just all up in each other's business, and I love it. And also Gabe, who is in this book, is one of the heroes in one of the Puck Boys series, the most recent one. So there is that connection between the series. Anyway, this was really fun and enjoyable and just very lighthearted. Continuing on my Saxon James trend, I read The Roommate Arrangement. This is the illustrated hardback edition, which is gorgeous. I showed this in my illustrated covers video, but I think I forgot to say, like, even the naked hardcover is gorgeous. This is book one in the Divorced Men's Club series. It is an romance. It is between Payne, who has recently discovered that his husband has been cheating on him and posting the videos of him cheating on Payne on OnlyFans. And obviously Payne gets upset and angry, leaves his husband, and is going through divorce proceedings and ends up back in his hometown. He was originally staying with his brother and his family, but ends up being offered a room to stay at his little brother's best friend's house. Beau is, I think, 4 years younger than Payne. He is a queer fantasy romance author and a little bit quirky, and has had a crush on Payne for years, since high school. But the longer they spend together, the more Payne becomes attracted to Beau, and the quirky things that he does, like building forts in the living room and having sword fights with umbrellas and brooms. That scene was one of my absolute favorites. It's very, very sweet. They're both very cinnamon roll characters, and Payne has all of these tattoos, and he often lets his nieces colour him in, like a colouring book with markers, and then, you know, he can wash it off and they get to colour him in again. And one of the things that Beau does to sort of de-stress is use colouring books, and there are some really gorgeous scenes of Payne just letting him colour in his tattoos, and it was very fun. I also like that both of these characters are in their 30s and 40s. I think Beau is 36 and Payne is 40. The other thing that was really fun is that there is a divorce support group in town. So some of Payne's friends from his high school years have started this up, and there are new people to town and whatnot, and they just have these very funny text message exchanges the whole way through the book. And then finally, I read Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita. This was another one of my Queer Lit Readathon picks. This book is honestly like the adult queer version of Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. If you've ever read that, it's one of my favourite young adult books. So it is about Alexi, who has recently come out to his family as gay. He's been rejected and basically told not to come back because it doesn't fit in with their religion. Editing Steph here. I forgot to mention that in this book, Alexi is still religious and is dealing with coming out and his religion and his faith and how that all works together throughout the book. So do be aware of that going into it if that's at all triggering for you. It felt very normal for what he was doing, but it is something that comes up a few times. So just heads up. And he has left his job and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do next. And so he decides to hike the PCT. And so we start off at the very beginning of his hike, and he saves the life of a fellow hiker whose name is Ben. And the two cross paths a couple of times, and then Ben asks if he can walk with Alexi. And now Alexi is not very socially confident, and the whole time I was reading him, even from the very first pages, I went, he's coded as autistic, and that is something that's acknowledged at the end. He doesn't know that yet, but he finds that he doesn't mind Ben's company. And so despite the fact that he was planning on doing it on his own, he ends up hiking with Ben, and the two get to know one another and develop feelings for one another. There are some complications because they even though they're talking, they're not really communicating as effectively, and Ben doesn't necessarily let him know that he's gay, and so that causes some friction after the first night that they sleep together, which is a decent way through the book, to be honest. It is very much a grumpy sunshine book. Alexi is very sort of closed off and aloof for reasons, And Ben is very much sunshine. He loves his family. He has a really great support network. And this also causes some friction when Alexei first meets them, because he is suddenly confronted by the things that he doesn't have. And there are a lot of things that they have to work through as a couple in the book. There is a lovely grand gesture scene at the end. I did get teary through parts of the book. I will content warning for, you know, estranged families and some pretty horrible homophobic slurs throughout the book, but the author does mention where they happen so that you are very aware of them and you can be prepared. All right, so those are the books that I have read in the past week. In the comments, I'd love to know if you have read any of them or if you're planning on picking them up. Otherwise, feel free to share something that you have been reading. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a shell emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.